Don't be afraid. Don't be no coward. Holy shit, it's time to be empowered. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Be-Mpowered Podcast. My name, as always, is Simon Miller. Of course it is. Imagine I changed my name now. Do I have an interesting podcast for you? First and foremost, I apologise for there being no podcast next week. There you go, there's the reason why. Very unpowerfully, I got a bit ill and I lost my voice. But what do? And the idea originally was to release a podcast with my good friend David Lynch, which we did record weeks ago. It was a Halo special. Unfortunately, there's too much background noise on it. I got annoyed listening to it. So if I get annoyed listening to it, if I put it out there into podcast land, you guys are going to get annoyed by it too. So that's gone, that's dead. I'll get Lynch back on soon to talk about something, maybe how he's really annoying and small. However, I did not want to go 2 weeks without releasing a podcast. That's not cool. Let's face it, it's not powerful. Now, as you may have noticed, if you haven't seen me on Twitter or anything, I'm by myself today. There is no one else. I did have a guest. Unfortunately, they dropped out for reasons which are more than acceptable. So it's just me. So we're going a bit Stone Cold Steve Austin with this. And if you've never listened to the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast, even while you're listening to this, I would say pause this now. Go to the iTunes store, however you indulge your podcasts, and go and listen to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Even if you don't like professional wrestling, well, no, maybe then you won't like it as much. But either way, my point is sometimes he doesn't have a guest and he just goes, he just talks. I'm going to try and do the same thing. I wasn't massively confident with it, so what I have done is I've given the word, I gave the shout out, I like the back signal, and I asked you guys to ask me some questions. Thankfully, you obviously do have some questions you asked me, because when I did write that tweet, I thought, who gives a shit what I have to say? But thankfully, thankfully you're all lovely people, and you decided to give me some questions. So it's going to be a bit of a different one, to say the least. Obviously, there is going to be no format. It's just personal stuff all the way through, really. If some topical stuff happens to come up in the questions, obviously I will answer it. But I'm going to go through every single one that I got up to point of recording this podcast. I can't tell you what it's going to be about. I can't tell you, and I didn't read the questions either. All I did was, when I saw it was a question, I favorited it. And I thought it's much better to answer on the fly than to come up with any fancy answers. So I'm sure some of them I won't have any answers to at all, but I'll be honest with you. Or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just ignore them. So we're going to start at the bottom of the list, which is Tom Bickmore. And Tom Bickmore asks, what is the worst character in the Gears of War series? If you don't know, I love Gears of War. I think Gears of War is a fantastic example of a video game, and more video games could learn from it, simply because you're a bunch of big dudes and you're running around shooting people in the face. I'm glad the movie seems to be dead on the water. I do not need a Gears of War movie. I have a Gears of War game, so why would I need the movie for? But anyway, worst character in the Gears of War series is probably Baird, just because, all the other characters in the game, like Marcus Phoenix obviously is your typical big, brute army dude, I mean, people say he doesn't have much of a personality, but I think that's deliberate. He's supposed to be reserved and he's supposed to be quiet because he has a lot of stuff going on in his life and he's really, really, really upset. But Baird is the complete opposite of that. Baird is supposed to be the arsey one in the group. So you've got like Marcus, who's your leader, Dom, who's sad about his wife, Cole, who's your, well, if we'll be honest with you, somewhat of a stereotype, but still an enjoyable character. And Baird is just your kind of annoying, whiny, moany dude. And I know that's the point. I know that's what we're supposed to take away from the Baird character, is that, he's the wisecracker basically, but it's like watching Stephanie McMahon on television. Oh, so many wrestling references already. But when I watch Stephanie McMahon on television, I don't when you have a good heel or bad guy, for those who don't follow it, the best thing about it is to, want to see that person not necessarily get beaten up, but, you want them to have their comeuppance. You want eventually the good guy or the face to win. What you don't want is a heel who winds you up to the point you don't even want to see them on TV. You just want to move away from it entirely. That's kind of what Baird does. Every time he comes on the screen, I'm like, just get off, go away. And that was my biggest problem with Gears of War 3, is that obviously it did the Pulp Fiction thing, where you kind of split down the middle, and sometimes you play as Cole and Dom. No, not Cole and Dom. Sometimes you play as Marcus and Dom, and sometimes you play as Cole and Baird. I didn't want to play as Baird. Baird is an asshole. Baird can kiss my ass. And even if that was what the idea Epic was going for, they wanted you to kind of have a love-hate relationship with him. Again, it made me want to turn off. It made me want to change the channel. And that's why Judgment sucks. Well, no. Judgment sucks because they thought it'd be a great idea to change the control scheme and fuck around with everything. But that's neither here nor there. Either way, Baird sucks. If he never comes back in the Gears of War series, I'd be happy with that. Okay, so next we go on to friend of Ben, also at Harry Nagus on Twitter. Hello, my friend. Thank you very much for the question. Who asks, how was this year in games on a scale of 1 to 10? Well, it's funny you should say that. If you don't know, I am making some videos and stuff on YouTube. It's all nonsense. It's all ridiculous. But if you don't know that and you would like to subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Just search for Simon Miller in YouTube. You can find me on there. But one of the videos I was slowly putting together for the next few weeks was a top 10 games of the year. And as I was making it and as I was going through it, I was a bit like, there haven't been that many games this year that I've been really, really excited about. Now, I'm not saying that good games haven't come out. They have. I just mean, for me, genuinely, especially as this is the first proper year since we've had the next gen or new gen or whatever the hell you want to call the machines. But even with that said, you know, the launch of the PS4 and the Xbox One didn't excite me as much as the PS3 and the Xbox 360. It may just be because I'm older now. And I'm certainly not saying that video games are a young man's sport or anything like that. But I don't know. I mean, this year, top of my head, the games that stand out are stuff like South Park, which, although, you know, it didn't really have the impact that it could have done if it had come out when it was originally planned to. It was so much fun to play, and it was so entertaining that I think, especially if you're a South Park fan, especially of the newer South Parks, which is which the humour really aped, it was a wonderful, and especially with all the other crap that we've had from South Park. I mean, there was one when you were fucking weeing on chickens or something, like, or turkeys. I mean, what the hell is that? It's not a game. It's not even an idea. But that comes to mind with all my problems I have with Dragon Age Inquisition. That was really good. I thought Call of Duty Advanced Warfare this year, although, you know, it's not amazing, it's still Call of Duty. I'm really, really enjoying it, and the multiplayer, you know, has genuinely won me over again. And it's nice for that formula to still be viable. Fuck, what am I talking about? Still be viable. It's good. It's a good game, isn't it? All these years later. So personally, for me, I'd give it a 7. Nice safe 7. Actually, no, fuck it, 6. I give it 6 out of 10 just because Batman didn't come out. There you go. 3 out of 10. No Batman. And Matt Crocker asks, I fancy a rant. So what do you think about CrossFit? What do I think about CrossFit? I think CrossFit is a waste of time. No, it's not. No, that's not fair. That's not fair. Look, if you're into CrossFit, and you like CrossFit, and you're a CrossFitter, and you're enjoying your cult, you know, that's all that matters. Anything that interests you should never be knocked or pushed down. But, you know, at the same time, I personally will never be able to get my head around we'll call it a sport, where you're told what to do on certain days. That's all I say about it. But look, if you're listening to this, and you're into CrossFit, and that's what got you into health and fitness, or it's even just something you enjoy, you've got a passion for it. Maybe you run one of those boxes, a CrossFit box or whatever it's called, and, you know, good for you, and I hope it goes well. On the less diplomatic side, I hate CrossFit. All right, Tom Bickmore's back. I'm only going to let him ask 2 questions because he's a nice dude. If you could forget everything you know about any game before replaying it, would you choose Shadow of the Colossus? Maybe. Alec Norton, thank you very much for the question, Alec. If there was a WWE BioWare RPG, who would you... Start again. If there was a WWE BioWare RPG, who would you play as, and who would you make them have an awkward romance with? Well, first of all, Alec, that's a really weird question. I'm glad that's the first thing that comes into your mind when you think of me. For starters, I mean, I say that would BioWare do a good job, but BioWare made the Sonic RPG, and I know everybody loves it and everyone thinks it's really, really good, but it's not. You're certainly not wrong. You know, if you like it, good for you, but it's a pile of crap. So I'm not 100% sure what they could do with it. I mean, essentially, WWE games, well, when they were done right, are an RPG because you have storylines and stuff. But who would I play as? Well, I guess it depends on what era of wrestling I can be. I mean, if it's sort of any wrestler you want, it would be Stone Cold Steve Austin or Bret Hart. And I guess if it was sort of based on the characters of today, I don't know, Rusev. There you go. And who would I have an awkward romance with? Well, why not put together Triple H and Vince McMahon? Eh? Why not? They're already working together closely. And then you kind of got a bit of, well, it's not real incest, but it's kind of like faux incest because obviously he's his father-in-law. What am I talking about? This is why I need a guest on. We've successfully taken these questions and now we're into the realms of incest. So we'll move quickly on to the man, the legend, the hero, Brett Claxton, who says, if you could change your name, what would you change it to? I shouldn't have straight answers to these, but I do. When I was younger, I said to my parents I would like to change my name, and they said, there's no way that's happening, but we will indulge you in your weird way, Simon. What would you like to be called? And ultimately, I told them I'd like to be called Bret Austin. Now, if you haven't figured out why, I'm not going to tell you, but I have a feeling that most people will understand why I wanted to be called that. But yes, I asked my parents when I was about 14 or 15 years old if I could change my name to Bret Austin, which sums me up as a person and sums up as a loser, I guess, for lack of a better term. Okay, next question. Neil Mathiasen says, have you ever listened to Alter Bridge? Yes, I have. I assume you want more than that. I think Alter Bridge are a decent band. My problem with them is most albums come out and the first track is always badass. If you're into sort of high-octane rock, if that's kind of music you listen to, then go listen to the first track of any Alter Bridge album and you'll be impressed. And tracks 1 to 4 are usually really good as well, but then they just become, the rest of an Alter Bridge album is like filler. It becomes stock music. And the worst thing about an Alter Bridge album is that within a couple of months, let's say, I'm done with them. I've really kind of just, the songs have lost all meaning, they've lost all impact, but when they do come out, they are really fun. So I do like the Alter Bridge. I think they're decent. I've seen them live a couple of times, and I think Miles Kennedy's got a great voice. Rodolph asks, with the recent Steam OS and Steam machines, do you think PC will begin to be an advertised platform to the mainstream world? No. Well, it already is, isn't it? I mean, Steam has opened up. I mean, it's not mainstream in the same way that, say, mobile phone games are, or tablet games, or casual games, however you want to call them. Stuff like Candy Crush. Obviously, MPs play and annoy everyone, which I don't really understand, but that's a different question, a different answer for a different day. But I don't think... I mean, they're not at that stage yet, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't get there. And yeah, stuff like Steam OS and Steam machines, where the idea is to get them into the living room and make the PC more accessible for sort of the wider community and not people that are happy to access it on their computer, then yeah, it certainly could. And I think more importantly, that if you do like games, casual games such as Candy Crush, then, there's a whole world of more complex games in terms of what they're trying to achieve, but they're still accessible and they're still simple to control. That those people could easily, for lack of a better term, evolve up to those games and realise that the PC has the same, if not more, to offer them than a tablet or a mobile phone. So yeah, maybe one day. I mean, the problem is that Valve actually obviously have to get Steam OS and Steam machines out there. They take their time, they don't rush, which is fine. I mean, the only reason people, I think, get so annoyed about Half-Life 3 is because it was supposed to, the whole idea was it was meant to be episodic. My gosh, can you imagine if you watch an episode of I don't watch soap operas other than the wonderful WWE, but, if you watch EastEnders and there was a cliffhanger and they told you you're not going to get the resolution to this for 5 years, you'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But that's what Valve do. So when they do pull the trigger on it and they do release it, yeah, I don't see why it can't get to that point where it kind of breaks through. But, PC in general will always be popular. I know it kind of had a bit of a downturn, however long it was, a few years ago. But it always has an audience. It always will have an audience. I mean, I used to be a big PC guy, but just consoles are so much easier that I moved across to that. But yeah, the PC will never die. That wasn't your question, but that's the answer you're getting. Russell Tassica, I can't pronounce your name, Russell, I'm sorry. Russell Tassica, I'm going to go with. What can we learn from Dragon Age Inquisition about being empowered? Absolutely nothing. All Dragon Age Inquisition teaches you about being empowered is that you have to go around and close Oblivion gates, or set up camps, or go kill rams for meat. That is not what being empowered is about. Empowering is about believing yourself and believing that you can achieve your dreams. If you go and set up a camp, you are not empowered. Good for you for following your passions, but that does not count. Right. Done. Next. David Stebbings. Has anyone who likes GoldenEye multiplayer ever played Quake World and decided, yes, GoldenEye is still good? I don't want to talk on behalf of everyone that has ever played or not played those games. But I mean, they're both good games. That's all I'll say. Yeah, Quake World is good and GoldenEye is really good. Obviously, I think GoldenEye worked because it was the whole, it's on a console kind of a deal, and it's this genre, or at least this idea that the PC world is used to, that is now no longer exclusive to that, which is the same reason Halo caused such a big fuss when it came on the scene. But I don't know. Tell me. There you go. Send me an email. What's my email address? No idea. That will flash up on screen, or if you're listening on iTunes, I'm sorry, I don't know. I've got a special, hang on, we're going to look it up. This is podcasting for you, isn't it? You're listening now going, what the hell am I listening to? And my answer for you is I don't know. SimonMillard@gmail.com. That's a stupid thing I set up. Email me and let me know, or at SimonMiller316 on Twitter, or leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube, whatever you want to do. Are you this niche person who played GoldenEye, then played Quake World and thought, man, that GoldenEye, what a pile of shit? Irk Bard asks, what's my favourite PlayStation 1 game? That is a question, obviously, because it's a question. But I never had a PlayStation 1 or an original PlayStation because I was still a young pup then. And as I was growing up, my parents said to me, look, Simon, you choose, motherfucker. That's how my parents talked to me when I was young. You choose, you son of a bitch. How? No. Which? Basically, pick a console. What do you want? And I picked Nintendo. I picked a NES. I was a very late comer to the NES, but that was it. So I went NES, had a Game Boy, then SNES, Nintendo 64, GameCube. And I never had. The first Sony console I had was a PlayStation 2 in around the early 2000s, I guess. I don't know. I'm making that up. But, around that time. I got the Gran Turismo 3-pack. There's some information you didn't want or need to know. So off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you what my favourite PlayStation 1 game is, because anything I came to, I guess Metal Gear Solid, because that's one of the few I went back and played, because obviously everyone was ranting and raving about it. But I like Metal Gear Solid 2 and 4 and never played 3. So by that account, so if we're going what the internet thinks, I'm not allowed an opinion on Metal Gear Solid. Yeah, there you go. Kerry Markland asks, if you had a second chance to make a first impression of someone you've met, who would it be and why? Well, I have a very strange answer to this one, my friend Kerry, and that is, when was it? I think it must have been 2008. Is that right? Is that when WrestleMania 24 happened? That's right, non-wrestling fans. We're back to wrestling. Anyway, I was very lucky to go to WrestleMania 24. And while I was in the airport for WrestleMania, which was in Miami, Florida that year, I saw Scott Steiner in the airport. Now, for those who don't know, Scott Steiner is a wrestler who did used to wrestle for the WWE, but at the time he was in TNA. Now, TNA being a much smaller company than WWE, they run events around WrestleMania time to try and in the same places that WrestleMania would be hosting, to try and take advantage of the influx of wrestling fans. So I saw Scott Steiner in the airport and I thought, man, I've got to go and say hello to Scott Steiner. It's flipping Scott Steiner. Now, Scott Steiner is a very angry man, as I'm sure many of you know. It's not just an on-screen portrayal. Something is wrong with that dude. I think. I don't know for sure. But I went up to him, I put my hand out, and I went, Scott, I just want to say it's a pleasure to meet you. I didn't ask for a picture. I didn't ask for an autograph. I didn't make any snide remark. He looked at me like I just told him that I was, in fact, his mother. And then as I was walking away to the escalators afar, and I was going down those escalators, he ran up and just stared at me down the escalator as if he wanted to rip my own head off. I was like, geez, Scott, I just said hello. Now, if I was going to remake that first impression, I think I would have gone up to him and clotheslined him. Because I may as well, to get that kind of response, I may as well do something, may as well do an action that deserves such a reaction. What? That wasn't a sentence. Oh well. But yeah, so we're going to go with Scott Steiner, which I'm sure is an answer you never expected, and it's actually a memory I've not thought of for a while. So thank you very much for that. Darth Gore, can you please bring back the original MOS crew for a WrestleMania special? All right, a quick bring you up to speed. Many years ago, me and some very good friends of mine used to do the Ministry of Slam, which was a wrestling radio show every Sunday night. It's dead now, unfortunately, all because we've gone on to other things. Obviously, I'm doing this. Lawrence is still kicking ass with his band. The man Martin is doing his thing, and Lee's doing 101 things. Will it ever come back? I don't know. I think Lawrence will be on the Be-Mpowered podcast soon. I've got to get in touch with him and sort it out. I've been lax with that. So, any old school fans, look out from Lawrence from Voodoo Vegas soon. Colin Hughes, when is a good time to replay The Last of Us? Just asking because I got a few days off coming soon. Well, if you want to play it again, I'd use those few days off. I've actually decided never to play The Last of Us again, which is a stupid thing to say, but it's true. I'll only go back through it if somebody I know wants to play it and I just happen to be in the vicinity, because I wouldn't mind sitting and watching it again. But to me, it was such a, it was such an interesting and fun experience first time round that I don't see the need to return to it. Like the impact it had and the journey it took me on. Oh man, I sound like a pretentious asshole, but never mind. But the journey it took me on, it was so unexpected, and I was so convinced that it wasn't going to be, not a good game. I thought it'd be all right, but I had worries about it from the demo, and I did a video game about it at the time. And I was wrong, and I was so pleased I was wrong. And it's still, to me, the last game I played that really made me go, video games are flipping awesome. But yeah, I think, look, if you want to go back through it and you've got a few days off and you want to go back to that world, then hell yeah, do it. I'd personally leave it a few more years, but Colin, my friend, you've got to do what feels right. Jingle tits. This is the best thing about not reading the questions. Also known as @Sonic Yoda. Oh, no, that's not a question. I'm going to leave it in, though, because your name is Jingle Tits. Right. I had a lot of this question, so if I don't read your name out, and I apologise, and you did ask, but this was the first one that came in, but this is for everyone. Ben Syme asks, are you excited about the possibility of CM Punk fighting the Green Ranger in UFC? To bring you up to speed, CM Punk, if you don't know, is a professional wrestler, fell out with WWE, last week signed with the UFC. It's a pretty big deal, because I think Punk is 36, possibly 37. He's obviously been through the wars, he's been injured, and also, if we look at it from a mainstream point of view, it is a fake fighter entering the world of a real sport. Now, to capitalise on the publicity, and, there's been a big deal about it. I think Punk was the #1 search trend on Yahoo, maybe even Google. I can't remember, but it was big. Or with the sports, it really did pick up a lot of people's attentions. And to try and jump off the back of that, the Green Power Ranger came out and said he would like to fight CM Punk. Well, I bet you'd like to fight CM Punk, Green Power Ranger. I imagine a lot of people would like to fight CM Punk because that is going to be a money day. CM Punk is going to bring wrestling fans. CM Punk is going to bring maybe lapsed MMA fans who know his name. And obviously the hardcore crowd are definitely going to be there because they're going to want to see this guy get his ass kicked. I know somebody else, and I will read your name out when I get to the question asked what I think about CM Punk going to the UFC. I think it's great because I'm a very casual UFC fan in the sense that I'll watch most pay-per-views, but if you want to get into the nitty-gritty, I can't name you fighters. I can't name you their weight categories. I know who I like and I know the fights I want to see. So getting to turn into a sport that I do enjoy, that I do think is really fun, and getting to see a recognisable face, I think is great. My favourite time with UFC was when Brock Lesnar was in it, just because it was hilarious seeing, you know, Brock Lesnar, this big scary dude kicking people's asses and at times getting his ass kicked. There was something really satisfying about it, kind of seeing those two worlds cross. So I think it'd be awesome to see CM Punk do his thing. Do I think he would do well? I mean, my initial reaction was no, simply because, again, he's an older dude and people have been doing this a long time. And I know he's always been, even when he was still with WWE, he was doing, I think, jiu-jitsu with Gracie or something like that. But, you know, he must have something. Dana White's not an idiot. He understands this big money business. CM Punk's obviously a confident dude. But I think between them, there must be some kind of idea that they think they can build a career out for him. I know he's got a multiple fight deal. If I had to put out on a limb, I'd say he'd probably do better than many people are expecting. Or at least I hope he does. I hope he has some competitive fights. And either way, you can't knock the guy because he's doing what he loves. He's going after it. He is empowering himself, people. Now, you know, I've got as many negative things I could say about CM Punk, the wrestler, not the dude, because I don't know him. I don't want to cross that line, as I do positive stuff. But that is what it's all about. He saw something he wanted, and he went out and he grabbed it. And he'll never regret that decision. Even if he gets his ass handed to him, say 5 times and out of the UFC, he gave it a go. And you can't regret the shit you do, unless you kill someone. But we won't get into that now. Sam Faulkner asks, my gym playlist is mostly aggressive game soundtracks. Any recommendations? I don't know if you mean if you want more aggressive music. Obviously, Machine Head are awesome. Metallica are the best band any made. They're so good they transcend music. Again, not something we're going to get into now. But other than that, wrestling themes, they're quite good. They only work if you like wrestling. I think you just stick with aggressive game soundtracks. Or metal. Metal works. Machine Head, Metallica. Who else do I like that no one likes? Symphony X. They're a weird band, but you check them out if you like prog metal. I don't know. I'll tell you what I'll do. For those who are interested and you use 8 Tracks, which is basically an internet program where you can make your own playlist, I will make a gym playlist. And if you do go to the gym and you want to check it out, I'll link it to on my blog at just Be-Mpowered.com. I'll tweet about it at Simon Miller 316. So if you fancy going on a Simon Miller gym journey, you can do that. If you've got no interest, I don't blame you. That's cool too. Alexander Laird asks, is man inherently good evil, or is morality purely a social construct? Alex, I'm recording this on a Thursday afternoon at 3:25, and that is a very deep, and we'll go with poignant question. I would say that I don't have an answer for that question. That is one I probably should have read beforehand. But I think you're an individual. If you want to be good, that's obviously good. Don't be evil, unless you have to be evil. What the? That was not an answer to any question. This is why I need someone on the other end of the damn line to keep me in check. Anyway, Fish, whose Twitter handle is Fish80946483. Nice. Some beginner tips, advice would be good for an unhealthy person to start getting into lifting and stuff. Can't put weight on. Well, that's actually very kindly, which may sound a bit weird. That's a question I get asked a lot, and I do find it kind because, you know, anyone that... Look, I find it kind that you guys have downloaded this, so anybody that wants my advice on anything, I'm blown away by. But the easiest and best way to do it when you first start off is to keep things simple. If you go on the internet and you read this stuff, there's so much information, and people want to take you from beginners to experts within one article or one podcast or however you're doing it, and it's too much. It's going to overwhelm you. It's going to make you, you're going to feel overwhelmed by it. And you're going to think to yourself, I can't do this. There's too much to learn. There's not too much to learn. The best thing you can do at the very, when you're just starting out is go to the gym. That is it. That's all you need to do. Find the stuff you like doing and embrace that kind of stuff. And don't be afraid if you don't like it. Now, obviously, if your goal is to put on size and put on muscle, then yes, there's going to be some stuff you don't like doing. I know it's classic and I know it's cliched, but sometimes I don't want to train legs because legs suck. But I do train legs because I understand that not only does it pump testosterone around the body because your legs are a massive muscle group, but I don't want to be top heavy and squatting is badass. So I do it. But if you start lifting weights and you realize that weightlifting is not for you, don't feel like you have to do it. Maybe you're more of a cardio guy, so you want to focus on that. Maybe find a sport to play. For example, if you start playing rugby and you get into rugby, then weights may become more fun because your goal is to get bigger for rugby. A lot of people always say to me, why are you so passionate about lifting weights? Because I like lifting weights. It's as simple as that. The first time I walked into a gym where I was 16, I did a bicep curl and went, yep, I can do that forever. That was awesome. So that is literally, find what works for you. Find your passion. Find something you're not going to give up on in a few weeks. Find something you're not just going to decide, find excuses for. Embrace it. Make sure it's something fun. That is, more important. And then start adding in the other stuff, You don't need to read an article or a magazine or even listen to me to know what a healthy diet is or to understand how to clean up your own diet. So if you're eating pizzas, burgers, ice cream, milkshakes, you're having the time of your life, but that's not good for you. So maybe the best thing you can do there, don't go cold turkey because then you're going to regret it that way, but maybe just once a week. Saturday evening is always a good time because people enjoy eating at the weekends. So tell yourself, Saturday evening, that's when I'm going to eat my burgers, ice cream, pizza. I'm going to have the time of my life. But from Sunday through to that Saturday, I'm going to eat well, I'm going to eat clean, I'm going to get my fruit and my veg in, and then you can build off that. The ideal way, and this is where we're getting specific now, so don't listen to this if you're just starting out, just come back to this when you want to. But come on, Miller, talk. The ideal way, the ideal way to put on muscle is to do 2 to 2.5 grams of protein per pound. So if you're a 200-pound man, aim to get about 400 grams of protein a day. And depending on how much weight you want to put on, aim for around 3 to 3.5 grams of carbs. That way you can find out a basic equation. But the best thing you can do is listen to your body. Watch your body. You may find that you can actually consume less calories and still put on size. There's no right or wrong to any of this. And you've got to find out what works for you. Don't feel pressured by anyone. Don't let anyone come in the gym and tell you you're doing something wrong. If it's working for you and you're enjoying it, keep doing it. And that's all that matters. Get some confidence with it. Find your momentum. And like I say, if you get to the point where you need any more information and you think I can help, I'm around at Simon Miller 316 at Simon Miller 316 on Twitter is the best way. But if you're just starting out, find what you love doing. Clean up your diet. That is it, and then we can get to all the rest of it. I'll do a bodybuilding, weightlifting, podcasting soon. It's on my list of things to do. And when I do that, then we can get into the nitty gritty and get to the point where you can be a bit more advanced with it. Bard is back, and he says, "What do you think of the band Tool?" I like the band Tool a lot. That's all I got to say. Martin Leah Hagen. I'm butchering a lot of names here. I apologise. Kotaku suspects The Last Guardian is headed towards PS4. What are your thoughts on that and The Last Guardian in general? Well, obviously, I've been in games media for a long time, so I have been in it to watch the birth, the somewhat life, and the apparent death of The Last Guardian, and I was upset by it because I'm a big Team Ico guy, whatever that means. I'm a Team Ico guy, explain that. I thought Ico was amazing, or Eco, some people get, fucking hell, the people that get on their high horse about that, get out more. But a big Ico fan. Shadow of the Colossus is one of my favourite games ever. And to think that at the moment we only have 2 games from a studio that's obviously capable of some wonderful work it's just disappointing. We've got studios of, video games that I hate pumping shit out year after year, and yet Team Ico can't seem to get their stuff together. I imagine The Last Guardian was just too ambitious for its own good. They tailed it back, realised they were going to miss the PS3 entirely, moved on to the PS4 and thought, oh, well, now with all this extra tech, we can do what we wanted to originally. I do think when it does, if it's not already dead, and I really don't know if it is or not, I've heard so many things over the last 2 years that, some people think it's been dead for years, and when it does come back, it'll be called something else and will be a completely different concept entirely. It won't be what we saw 2-3 years ago now, I think was the last time they updated us properly. It won't be the same as that. It will be different. They'll probably keep the name just because it is in the sort of the sphere of video games. But yeah, don't expect to be the same game. Maybe a similar concept, but I imagine it's come a long way since then. But I want it to come out. I desperately do. The best thing about Shadow of the Colossus was it felt different. It didn't feel like what everybody else was releasing. And it felt like one of those games that you sit down and play it and go, you know what? This could only be a video game. It wouldn't work in any other spectrum. And that was wonderful. So no one from Team Ico is listening to this. But as the saying goes, if anyone from Team Ico is listening to this, you're awesome. Keep making games if you can. Incest Tom, not pronounced right. Is it acceptable to roundhouse kick a koala? Well, that all depends whether it stole your wallet or not. That's the rule. If it stole your wallet, yes. If it didn't, no. Talk it out. Bob Mallet, what is biggest gaming disappointment this year? Oh, sorry, what is your... Sorry, Bob, I just grammatically slandered you. What is biggest gaming disappointment this year? What is your biggest gaming disappointment this year? Well, it's Dragon Age Inquisition, really. I got a video going up maybe today, unlikely, probably next week, called What the Hell Went Wrong with Dragon Age, which is basically just my little look into You know, because I say to people I like Dragon Age, and it's not true. I like Dragon Age Origins. That's the game I love. That's the game that I wanted more of, and I never got it. Dragon Age 2 is, for lack of a better term, BioWare and EA's attempt to make it appeal to a mainstream market. And Inquisition is the updated version of an RPG, which I didn't want. So I still like it. You know, if I take it on its own merit and I take it out of context, I think Dragon Age Inquisition is a fun RPG. But I don't think it's a Dragon Age game. And I think whatever we get next is going to... You know, it will jump off the Inquisition platform and it will leave anything from Origins behind. And that upsets me. I never got Dragon Age Origins 2. And a lot of people go, well, you don't need that. Well, I did. That's what I wanted. It's cool that you didn't. That's awesome, you know. But that's what I wanted. I never got it. So, yeah, I'd say probably Dragon Age Inquisition. Can I think of anything else that pissed me off this year? The Crew. Just because, why not? Nick Palmer, what do you think about the WWE Champion being missing in action for 4 months? I'm in two worlds about it because, first off, Nick, I like the idea of Brock Lesnar or the WWE Champion being treated like a special attraction. I know it's the gump that WWE roll out all the time and it makes me sound like an asshat. But I do like it because it means when he is on TV or they tell me he's going to be on TV or I know he's coming back from the TV, I'm going to tune in. I'm going to watch it because I'm excited about seeing him again. I'm a big Brock Lesnar guy. With that said, I don't think it necessarily works over the period of time he has been away for. I think maybe 2 months maximum. But the real problem is they took Paul Heyman off television. I know he's slowly coming back on TV now to talk about it. But I was much bigger fan of when Paul Heyman kept me up to date about, you know, what is Brock Lesnar doing? Because it made him feel relevant. It made him feel special. I also don't understand why they can't film behind the scenes stuff with him or at his house stuff or training stuff, whatever, and work that into Raw. That way I get to see him, but he's not physically there. So the idea of him actually turning up is more exciting. So 4 months is too long. But then again, you know, I think there is a happy balance they could have done. But the reason I believe he's been off TV so long and the reason Heyman disappeared is because it doesn't look like he's going to sign after WrestleMania 31. So in typical WWE fashion, it's like, well, let's bury him right now. You'll never be able to bury him, though, because he destroyed John Cena and he beat the streak. Whether you like it or not, Brock Lesnar will last a long time in the history books for WWE. You know, he's always going to be that guy. He's always going to be chatted about. No one's asked me this, but while we're on the subject, I was cool with him breaking the streak. I thought it was interesting. It gave me such a huge surprise when I watched it, which I always love in professional wrestling and is few and far between nowadays. And he was a legit guy to do it. So in that sense, you know, I was cool with it. But yeah, I think 4 months is probably a little too long. Francis Reyes says, what am I doing for Christmas and New Year? Also, what have been your game highlights over the last year? We kind of touched on the game highlights thing. I'm trying to think if there's anything I've missed out. I don't think there is. But like I say, there's a video coming out. Keep an eye out for the video. I'll pimp that again now. Just my favourite games of the year. It will be ridiculous. It will be nonsensical like all my stuff. But I'll kind of address that in the year. What am I doing for Christmas and New Year? Well, I don't really celebrate Christmas. I'm Jewish. I celebrate Hanukkah. So I'll be rocking fucking Hanukkah. And New Year, I'll probably stay in and eat pizza and chocolate because I don't do that much. Peter at Holodrone says, what is the best Bond game ever and why? What is the best Bond film ever and why? Well, the best Bond game is GoldenEye. I know it's unplayable now, but, you know, at the time, and people forget, GoldenEye did not come out the same time. I think it could even be, this is why I should fact check, but who gives a shit? GoldenEye, the game, came out about 2 years later than the movie. So, you know, it had no license value whatsoever. It's like, here's an old James Bond game. But the reason it was so damn good is because it played so well. I mean, I liked Everything or Nothing as well. I think it was called, which is utter dog shit, don't get me wrong. But I like that one. Otherwise, I think all the rest have been pat pretty much. I know a lot of people go on about Nightfire, but I'm not massively fussed about that. The best Bond film? GoldenEye again. But I'm not a massive Bond fan. I watched Skyfall the other day for the second time. When I first watched Skyfall, I thought Skyfall was pretty good. I don't like Skyfall. I don't think it's a good movie. Glyn Mooney asks, do you think Hollywood should stop making Batman films and just hand it over to Rocksteady Games to make CGI movies instead? I agree with you. I think that that'd be cool to give them a chance to do that, but I don't think Hollywood should stop making movies. I think they should stop making movies with fucking Ben Affleck in it. But, you know, if we did that, we wouldn't have the Dark Knight trilogy, which, as we all know, is the greatest trilogy of all time. And I genuinely, that's up there as well. But then again, I think the Naked Gun trilogy is also one of the best trilogies of all time, which probably means my opinion counts for absolutely nothing. But still, I would like to see Rocksteady try that, though, because they get Batman. Their knowledge and their understanding and their love and passion for that guy is up there with anybody's. And that's why the games are so good, because I can imagine them sitting in a studio and getting all giddy about it. So that's why they come across so well. And that's why, you know, they appeal to so many people, because you play it and you go, fuck. This is the Batman game that I would have made. Yeah, I mean, you know, they're making out like Arkham Knight will be I don't think it'll be their last Batman game, but obviously it'll be the end of the Arkham trilogy if we take Origins out of it. But why not? You know, Warner Brothers, why not give them a chance to do something like that? It might probably suck, because these things usually do, but I'd watch it and I'd get it. So, yeah, give them a go. Matthew Jones asks, what's the most powerful foreign language? Which is just an absolutely wonderfully bizarre message question. Russian, I'll go with, because it sounds really aggressive, whereas often it's not. So you can actually say something really nice to someone and scare the shit out of them. I guess that's quite powerful. But, yeah, maybe, I don't know. Screw French and Italian. Everyone loves those. I got screwed over in school. I moved around schools a lot when I was a kid, to the point that I'd always be starting different modules in different schools, just because I'd finish one up at one school, get moved halfway through a term, and then at that new term, people have been doing Spanish or French for 6 months, and I never started it. So I got thrown into French when these motherfuckers have been doing it for like 2.5 years. I'd never done French, don't ask me why, it just wasn't in my previous school curriculum. So all I would do is I used to get a French dictionary, and I would just write everything out verbatim, and my French teacher told me I was the worst French student she ever had. And I was like, well, yeah. It's probably true. But, you know, no one gave me, I wasn't given any chance to catch up with, you know, with speed or anything. I basically told French, Miller, get on with it. And for the record as well, you know, I quite like the fact that everyone on Twitter calls me Miller. My teachers did it as well. My teachers in school would call me Miller. I was never called Simon, to the point that one time another student came up to me and said, so Miller, what's your first name? And they're now, what's your last name, sorry? As if my first name was Miller. And they're now dead. For the record, they're not, well, they could be dead. I don't know. I haven't chatted to them in a long time, but I didn't kill them. That's a strange tangent. And we've got one more, which comes from Bootleg Quee. I think you may have asked one already, but I've gone through a big list. So if you have, I don't care, you get another one. My podcast, do whatever I want. Thoughts on NXT and the new crap of talent. So we're ending with a wrestling question, which I'm sure will please everybody. If you don't know what NXT is basically the feeder system for WWE, set up mostly by Triple H. So, you know, it's the equivalent of a college American football team or something like that, I guess is the way to put it. The crop of talent, obviously, Owens, Zayn, Balor, and Itami. I think I never like to put stock in anyone until they've been called up to the main roster, because a lot of dudes do really, really well in NXT, Adam Rose, and then get called up and are, you know, genuinely one of the worst wrestlers I've ever seen in my life, Adam Rose. And because the thing is, and I chatted about this with Gary Dutton when I did my wrestling podcast a few episodes ago, if you want to go back and listen to it. And he summed it up perfectly. And that is, in the NXT arena, which is very, very small, gimmicks don't have to translate to as big as an audience. So you can do these smaller things and they can work and they can be successful. When all of a sudden you go from, you know, 1,000 people to 10,000 people, it may not correspond as well as you thought it was going to. I've never understood the Emma gimmick. It just comes out and she does weird robot shit. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? I know it's not the point, but that's all I take from it. And in a bigger stage, it's even weirder. It's like she doesn't know she's doing it. It's like some weird kind of sympathetic thing. Oh, send her out, let her do her weird dance. It's like she's 8. I don't get it. So all those dudes are awesome. I mean, the fact they got Kevin Steen in there, you know, it's wonderful, because his big thing was his personality. I mean, he's a decent worker, no question. But, you know, he doesn't look like your typical WWE guy. So for them to sign him, I think, means they're really planning for the future. They're trying to get these different kinds of people and make it varied, which wrestling's always the best when you have varied kind of dudes. So as long as they're, you know, not rushed up to the main roster, and when they do get there, they're not jobbed out and they do the right thing, yeah, I think it'll be great. I think it looks great for the future. I mean, look at the guys they've got now. Bray Wyatt, Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, Rusev. You know, these dudes are all dudes I like watching. I look forward to them when I watch Raw or SmackDown. And there was a time when new guys would come in WWE and I would not give a shit. I was like, I don't want to see you. You know, I want to see the stars. Now, you could argue it's because the top stars now are crap. I don't like John Cena. Kane, who I was always a big fan back in the days, is a joke. And we are getting to that point now where we do need a new era of stars to come through. And I think the dudes they do have sort of on paper are really, really, really good. I think wrestling's future looks bright. Classic thing to say, but you never know. Trust me, WWE have fucked up far easier things than this. If you don't believe me, go watch the Invasion pay-per-view from 10 years ago, probably more now, whenever it was. What an abomination. That's pretty much it. That is pretty much all the questions I got. Oh, there are a few that I didn't get round to say, which I apologise for, because obviously I had to record it sometimes, so I had to cut it off. But look, the best thing you can do is tell me this. You just listened to me rant for an hour or whatever. If you liked it, send me a message on Twitter at SimonMiller316. Send me a Miller, simonmiller@gmail.com. If you're watching on YouTube, leave me a comment below. If you liked it, I can kind of do more of these. You know, ask me a question as well. You know, if you can continually ask me a question, I can build them up, and maybe we have a separate Q&A podcast, or I do it every now and then when I can't get a guest on. Similarly, if you absolutely hated it and you've turned off, well, you wouldn't have got to this point. But if you persevered because you're a masochist and you think, Miller, never do this again, let me know. I'm not going to be offended. The whole point of this stuff, on some level, on every level, not on some level, is to entertain people. If you're not entertained, then what the fuck is the point? That is not empowering anybody. I have tried to channel Stone Cold Steve Austin though, so that's another little dream achieved, so I'm pretty happy. If you have liked it though, and if you like any of the stuff I've done, please tell a friend. Please go on iTunes or however you can review the podcast and leave me a rating. Even if you hate it, why not? Then I can read it and go, whoa, they didn't like that. I've got to change suit. But any kind of activity or stuff like that means we go up the rankings, more people can hear us, more people can become empowered. If you haven't found me on YouTube, I'm there. It'd be my pleasure and my honor if you give me a sub as I try and build that as well. But again, thank you very much for listening to this. It was a bit off the cuff, a bit, you know, flying by the seat of my pants, but hey, I can't go 2 weeks without empowering myself or other people. That sounds weird. That is not a reference to masturbation before we get anywhere. But I can't leave it. Can't leave it 2 weeks. I will be back next week with a new guest. We'll talk about something. Who knows? But in the meantime, thank you very much for downloading me. Thank you very much for going on this special journey with me. Again, that sounds weird. This is why I shouldn't be allowed to rant and rave. Where do we get to? Just bizarre places. Anyway, let's wrap this up. Thank you once more. My name is Simon Miller. Remember to always believe in your dreams and always believe in yourself. This has been the Be-Mpowered Podcast, and we're going to be back in 7 days.